thank you all so much for being here today. I'm going to be speaking primarily about the fashion legacy of the Black Panther Party from the 1960s and on, but I'll also be looking at a separate but not entirely exclusive movement called Black is Beautiful that emerged in the late 60s and early 70s as well. So I do have several slides, but I'll show more of those at the end, and I'll go through the actual presentation first. For minority groups in America, fashion can serve as a political statement. Select clothing items, such as a black beret, can non-verbally communicate someone's political ideals. This tactic was utilized by American social justice groups like the Black Panther Party for self-defense. The Black Power movement in the 1960s and 1970s signified a departure from previous trends for civil rights activists. The fashion styles of the Black Power movement and Black Panther Party arose in two distinct but not mutually exclusive trends. The first was the rise of militant fashion in berets and leather jackets that would become synonymous with the Black Panther Party. And the second was cultural. It was culturally nationalist, and it was labeled as Black is Beautiful. It manifested itself proudly in ethnic celebration through bubbas, dashikis, and natural hair. The goal of this paper is to explore both of those manifestations, why they arose, and their legacy today. In order to understand the style the Black Panther Party for self-defense would adopt, one must contextualize the environment the party was established in. 50 countries gained their independence in the years leading up to the party being established. The Black Panther Party was formed as a response to the aggression of police officers in Oakland, California in 1966 by Bobby Seale and Huey Newton. Together, the two intentionally selected a look that emphasized the dedication to armed self-defense and that was inspired by military and police uniforms. Bobby Seale was a former member of the United States Air Force. Huey Newton was a law student and someone who was well-versed in Black history and a great admirer of Che Guevara. He was the one who created the truly militant look when he chose to incorporate open firearms into the early Black Panther Party uniform based on his knowledge of California gun laws at that time. They were tailored early on by Seale and Newton to be militaristic. Newton and Seale formally chose to adopt the beret as the party's uniform after being inspired by a film on the French Resistance. To them, the beret signified parliamentary action and serious militancy. The militant look of the beret changed the way that civil rights activists were perceived in the 1960s. Middle-class normalcy, the look of previous freedom fighters, attempting to align with respectability politics during the time in the early civil rights movement was forever changed. In the eyes of Black Panther Party members, the party was at war with the city of Oakland's police force. Although the party never formally declared that its members wear a uniform, nor specified a look for their members in their official literature, an unofficial uniform emerged. It was first worn by Seale and Newton and the original 6 members of the Black Panther Party. The standard for party members was a black beret, black leather jacket, powder blue shirt, and black sunglasses. For Seale, who had worked in the military before a dishonorable discharge less than a month before the end of his contract, the parallel between the black berets and the elite green berets of the military must have been intentional. The black beret can be seen in nearly every photograph of party members at speeches, rallies, or any event that was open to the public eye. At the funeral for George Jackson, a former Panther, all attendees dressed in the Black Panther Party style with berets and leather jackets. At the charter schools established by the party for children in the community, the outfit was part of their formal education. Photographs from the period show all children who were enrolled in Black Panther Party community schools, charter schools, or outreach were dressed in white button-downs with black wool or felt berets atop their heads. The black beret emerged as a symbol for the party. Huey Newton, after his arrest in 1967, was pictured on signs, flyers, and newsletters wearing a black beret. That image of Newton was one of the most circulated around the Black Panther Party and around California at the time. The beret was the most important and influential piece that the Black Panther Party members wore. When asked what the beret meant, a Black Panther Party member named George Young responded, "Because they were used by just about every struggler in the Third World. They're sort of an international hat for the revolutionary. Because they were used, the Panthers' beret would be undeniably influential, and many other radical groups would also adopt berets. Those groups included the Brown Berets, the Rainbow Coalition, the Young Lords, and the Cabinet of Five. The beret became a major icon of revolutionary fashion and Black power. Eventually, Latinos, whites, and Asian militants would similarly adopt the headpiece, albeit in different colors. The history of the beret prior to the Black Panther Party aligned with the group's target audience. The beret had long been associated with the lowest classes in society. It was the headgear of peasants, which is why populist figures like Rembrandt and Leo Tolstoy often wore it. This history made the beret even more appropriate for the poor communities of Panthers, whose mission it was to combat poverty. The most militant aspect of the Black Panther Party uniform, however, was the presence of guns. This was a key part of the early Black Panther uniform. Huey Newton saw the abuse of the Black community by police officers in arrest as the most pressing concern for Black people at the time. With his knowledge of the law, he took advantage of the open carry law, and he and other Panthers carried up open firearms in public areas. Their look, especially with the firearm, juxtaposed the uniforms of their declared oppressors, the police. It also made anxious the establishment. The California state legislature convened in Sacramento shortly before activists began taking the streets to discuss overturning the law that allowed firearms to be carried publicly. Though this event is now remembered as one of the first state attacks on gun rights, it was also when the Black Panther Party made its first national public media appearance. Ronald Reagan, then the governor of California, was hosting an event for school children called the Future Leaders of America. Newscasters were interviewing Reagan and the school children when the Black Panther Party arrived. Due to their similar clothing, they appeared to be part of a gun club, remarked Bobby Seale in a recent interview with the National Public Radio. The look of the group immediately disrupted the Future Leaders of America, and the new look of the civil rights movement was broadcast on national television for the first time. As a result, the group immediately received an inflow of new members, all of whom would bring their own leather jackets and their own berets. Huey Newton, during the early years of the Black Panther Party, would often cite the Second Amendment of the United States Constitution and the California Penal Code 1020. This aspect of law allowed anyone who did not have a felony and was not carrying the firearm with the purpose of disrupting the weapon to carry a shotgun, pistol, or any gun openly. The weapon could not be concealed and must be fully visible. Thus, the Black Panthers, at that time being organized in response to police brutality, would follow Oakland police officers from legal distance in uniforms of their own to ensure the safe and legal treatment of any person of color detained. With guns and apparent uniforms of their own, the Black Panthers became a police presence unto the Oakland City Police, militant and threatening. Ray Gall, a policeman in Oakland in 1966, who had encountered the Black Panthers in such a setting, described the effect as nothing less than intimidating. When the law that allowed for open firearms was being overturned, the rest of the Black Panther uniform remained. During the deliberation of the California State Legislature, one Panther was interviewed by reporters. His comments established why the militant ensemble of the Black Panther Party was necessary. The Black Panther Party for self-defense, he said, calls upon the American people in general, and Black people in particular, to take careful note of the racist California legislature, which is now considering legislation aimed at keeping the Black people disarmed and powerless, at the very same time that racist police agencies throughout the country are intensifying the terror, brutality, murder, and repression of Black people. Colin Kaepernick, the American quarterback who gained infamy for kneeling during the national anthem, embodies the same spirit as the Panthers in Oakland in 1966. In explaining his silent protest, Kaepernick stated, "I am not going to stand up to show pride in a flag for a country that oppresses Black people and people of color. To me, this is bigger than football, and it would be selfish on my part to look the other way. There are bodies in the street and people getting paid leave and getting away with murder, all of which echoes the statements made by the Panthers during the California legislature deliberation on State Law 1020. Kaepernick, in protesting police brutality, does so in a primarily nonverbal manner. Aside from his kneel protests, Kaepernick's personal style instigates a response from critics. Photographed wearing socks that depicted pigs dressed as police officers, Kaepernick communicated the same message that the Panthers did in the 1960s. Pig imagery was started by the Panthers and has become synonymous with police officer abuses. Because in a formal comment about those socks, Kaepernick had stated, "I wore those socks in the past because the row cops that are allowed to hold positions in police departments not only put the community in danger, but also put the cops that have the right intentions in danger by creating an environment of tension and mistrust." Perhaps the greatest symbol of the Black Power tradition that Kaepernick displays is his large afro. While the hairstyle is political, it is a modern example of the continuation of the Black is Beautiful movement. It signifies that Black is not only beautiful, but powerful and ethnically distinct. Kaepernick's hairstyle stands out and establishes a platform for him to bring political issues into discussion. From music to fashion to mainstream politics, the cultural landscape of America significantly reflects not only the presence of African Americans, but also a general and pervasive understanding that Black people are more than just background characters in an ostensibly white narrative. Nor are they subsumed in an ethnically distinct Americanness. This statement by Jeffrey O.G. Ogbar, professor of history at Indiana State University, is validated only by the legacy of the Black Panther Party. While today the culture of the United States borrows from multiple influences and minority groups dictate markets rather than just influence them, such was not always the case. While the civil rights movements in the 40s and 50s was extremely conservative, in the 60s and 70s extremely conservative, the current period has found a middle ground that accepts African American and minority style where it has previously been described as a type of ethnically distinct Americanness. Prior to the Black Panther Party for self-defense, the look of Black civil rights leaders mimicked white cultures in its conservatism. It did not, as Ogbar suggests, reflect the presence of African Americans at all. Traditional African styles had been rare. Dashikis and natural hair rose in popularity alongside the Black Panther Party, becoming mainstream by the mid-70s. The party radically changed the way that civil rights leaders would be perceived. Martin Luther King Jr., carrying a Bible and dressed in a suit, conveyed white conservatism and patience. Huey Long and Bobby Seale, however, dressed in dark outfits, carrying guns, wearing their hair naturally, conveyed a militant dissent from the acceptable white culture and demanded acknowledgement of their heritage. By 1967, the year following the party's establishment, the look of the civil rights movement had undergone a metamorphosis. What Black Panthers viewed as militant oppression by the uniformed police was fought by their own kind of militant resistance by a uniformed and organized group of activists. The look would become bold where it had always been mild. The result, in modernity, has been a middle ground of 1940 and 1970. Our culture is one that struggles with appropriation, but has been generally accepted the different styles of different ethnic groups. Bobby Seale commented on the look in 1967. Its standard of aggressiveness, of militance, of just forcefulness. That's a standard that they hadn't had in the past. Footage from the PBS documentary, Black Panthers, Vanguards of the Revolution, reveals scenes of Black Panther trainings. Dozens, if not hundreds, of Black Panthers stand in military lines, identically dressed in blue shirts, leather jackets, dark sunglasses, and berets. The one other aspect of their look that unifies them is their afros. The afro and natural hair can be contributed not to the Black Panther Party specifically, but to the Black is Beautiful movement. Not officially organized as the Panthers had been, it was the result of acknowledgement and acceptance by Black people that they were different from white people, but just, if not, as beautiful. Women and men chose to wear their hair in the way that they were born. Kathleen Cleaver, wife of Eldridge Cleaver, Black Panther and professor of law at Yale University, commented. She said, "This brother here, myself, all of us, we are born with our hair like this, and we just wear it like this. The reason for it is a new awareness among Black people that their natural appearance is beautiful. They are aware of it now and proud of it. For so many years, we were told that only white people were beautiful. Only straight hair, light eyes, light skin was beautiful." Black is Beautiful overlapped at times with the Black Panther Party uniform, but would prove to be a cultural phenomenon independent of the party. Jamal Joseph, author and member of the Panther 21, commented on Black is Beautiful in an interview with PBS. The Panthers didn't invent that idea. People had already started wearing afros and bubbas and dashikis, and the look just blew people away. In as many ways as the Black Panthers embraced the Black is Beautiful manifestations and ethnic fashions, the party also dissented. Fred Hampton, chairman of the Illinois chapter for the Black Panther Party, deputy chairman of the Black Panther Party, publicly criticized the cultural nationalism and felt that African attire would not spur the change in the Black community, but rather revolutionary action. Many Panthers admired and saw value in the promotion and popularity of Black culture, but believed the new cultural awareness was problematic, discrediting or diverting attention from the real issue. The Panthers were highly critical of African styles, associating it with cultural nationalism and not the civil rights that they wanted. Revolution begins with the self. In the self. Black feminist author Toni Cade Bambara wrote, "So how we present the self can communicate the revolution that one has adopted. The effect of the Black Panthers Party dress was bold and alarming. It signified the seriousness of the party and echoed their militant actions, patrolling the police. It juxtaposed their greatest viewed oppressor, the police. To see a figure today like Colin Kaepernick champion the same issue, a stand against police brutality, is to see the legacy of the Black Panther Party in action. Kaepernick's natural hair is also reminiscent of the sister look to the Black Panthers' militarism. Black is Beautiful. Though both movements were distinct, they often overlapped, and their major effect was the departure from white standards. Together, both movements allowed Black communities to have their own look and be part of a separate culture where the standards for beauty were not whitewashed." So that's my paper. I brought some slides to show you. These are all taken from people who were members of the civil rights movement in the early 50s. And the later pictures will show, the first pictures will be taken by members of the Black Panther Party. This is Huey Newton. He was the founder, along with Bobby Seale, of the Black Panther Party in 1966. You can see behind him is the communist revolutionary Che Guevara, who notoriously wore a beret, a black one as well. Huey Newton was a huge fan of Che Guevara, who's often being accused of being a communist. But you can see where he derived the idea to have the black beret. And the picture you can see next to him is the picture that was one of the most widely circulated in California in 1967. And you can see that he's also wearing a beret in that photo, which helped establish the beret as a revolutionary symbol during the time. This is a photo from one of the Panthers charter schools, and you can see that all of the children are also wearing berets on the left. And you can also see the photo of Huey Newton, again, wearing a black beret, pasted on the wall in the back. This photo was taken at the Panther George Jackson's funeral, so you can see how the Panthers made an effort to look a certain way when they knew that they were going to be photographed or portrayed to the public in any way. And now we can kind of see the transition from what civil rights activism looked like in the 1950s. Of course, this is Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and his wife. They're leading a march, and you can see that they're all dressed in longer clothes, things that aren't as antagonistic. The clothes were extremely conservative because of the respectability politics going on at that time. And that's another reason why the Black Panthers really wanted that departure, is they no longer wanted to have the peaceful movement, but they wanted to be defensive of their own rights. This is a photo from one of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s rallies. I would ask all of you guys, look to see if you can find like a single beret or black leather jacket in this photo. This photo was taken in the mid-50s, and there's absolutely no presence of any of the fashion that would appear about 6 years later. The last photo again, or the second to last photo, is a photo of children. This is taken in Brooklyn, I believe, and these are just two kids. This is how they dressed in the 1950s before they were accepted of having their hair natural or wearing ethnically proud styles. This photo is of a gentleman in the 1950s, again in New York City, having his hair chemically straightened before it was acceptable or even noticeable to have somebody wear their natural hair. And the last photo of Kathleen Cleaver, she's the one who discussed why people started wearing their hair naturally. And she was although she was a Black Panther Party member and leader herself, she was married to Eldridge Cleaver, who was very high up in the party. She was a huge proponent of the Black is Beautiful movement on the side. So that's all. If you have any questions, please let me know.